This is the Front Porch Podcast. I'm Jessica Alarcon, and I'm here today with Michael Blair.
Hey.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for doing this.
Really appreciate it.
Glad to be here. Thanks.
So to get started, I'd just like to hear a little bit about you, who you are, where you came from, and how you ended up here in Oak Park.
I'm a man. I came from Mars. That's what they say anyway.
Yes.
Let's see. So Oak Park, I got out here about 16 years ago, and I went to Sac State. And so one of my professors was Dr. David Cohen, great guy. And he would tell all these cool stories. It was a history class.
Okay.
And tell these cool stories so the group, just the class, really respected him. Great guy. Anyway, it was a Black history class, and there was never any answer he didn't have. I mean, we'd try to stump him as hard as we could. We'd ask him stuff about, almost ancient times, and he just always had the answers. We looked up to him quite a bit. He ended up saying one day, we asked him where he lived, and he said, I live in Oak Park. And at the time, this is years back, where Oak Park, it's like, why would someone live in Oak Park on purpose, right? And so we said, why? You're making all this money at the university. Like, why would you live there? And he said, I want to be a positive force in a negative environment to bring change. And we just all stood there. It was so profound. Mouths dropped open, and that just stuck with me. So when I was ready to buy a house, I said, okay, I'm going to Oak Park. And with that same purpose and mission. Anyway, I bought my house, I guess about 16 years ago. And then as I'm getting set up and getting acclimated with the neighborhood, I go for a drive, and I kid you not, I drive by this big, beautiful house, and there's this guy with white hair out watering the grass. I said, that's Dr. David Cohen. He lives like a block away from me. So it's ironic the way that worked out. So anyway, he's just contributed so much to the community, and he's just a wealth of knowledge. So I definitely recommend putting him on your list to get him out for one of these podcasts.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, that's such a great story. So you really moved here on purpose.
Yeah. It was, at the time the area was improving, but I knew that there was still, it was affordable, right? And it was more of an investment kind of mindset at first. And then I got here and just really loved it. And I was like, okay, I'm staying. So it worked out great. I have my daughter was in 4th grade at the time, and she went to PS7, and just loved that experience. Went all the way up through Sac High, and then graduated. Then went to USC, and now she's still out there in LA. So yeah, we're kind of raised up in Oak Park to a large degree.
Oh wow, that's great. So what was it like raising your daughter in Oak Park?
Actually, it was really good because. There's some things that the community is lacking, right? And I know, for instance, 18% of third graders are at reading level. So I was kind of concerned about the schools and should get the proper education. But what St. Hope was offering at the time seemed like they were really on cutting edge type of education. And so it worked out really well. She enjoyed the experience. But what I think I enjoyed about it the most were the rides to school. Because when we got in the car, and from the car to the school, we'd pass by so much. We'd just see so many things. We'd see homelessness. We'd see folks doing well. We would see people living in cars. We would see just so many things we could talk about. Loose dogs running in the streets. And then one day, there was a guy on a bike, and he had a boombox kind of attached to the front. And then he had a chain that connected to a shopping cart, and he was pulling it. And you just don't see those kinds of things in Natomas or anywhere else, right? So it's kind of entertaining at the same time, and just watching people just do what they can with what they have. So we had a lot of talks just about how to live your life choices, those kinds of things. So it's really an educational experience all the way, going to school and just our whole experience here.
Okay. Oh, wow. That's so interesting. I can resonate with that. My kids, they've seen the guy with the bike and the boombox comes up and down,
Yeah.
We'll see a couple of those up and down the street pretty regularly.
Creativity. Love it. Yeah, to get the job done.
It is really, I've seen some creative things.
Nice.
You're right. I've not thought about pointing that out to my kids and being like, look at that.
Yeah. Yeah, because sometimes you can't just go to Amazon and buy what you need. You have to make what you need and get creative. And a lot of
Yeah.
times these younger generations don't really see that as much because they don't understand the struggle.
No.
But when I was coming up, if you have a soccer ball and it busted, you have to find a way to fix that. You're not going to get a new one, so you have to figure out how to kick it while it's flat, or figure out a way to get some air in it, or put some silly putty in it, or whatever you have to do. But it's just all in, I think, a mindset, having that determination and getting it done.
Yeah, that's a good lesson to learn.
Yeah, nice.
So you're pretty involved in the neighborhood. I was telling you earlier, I've seen your name in the neighborhood association and several other organizations.
Yeah.
So how did you start getting involved in the community, and how did that go for you?
Yeah. So, again, I keep on saying the 16 years because it's just, it's when I first got here, but I didn't really get active until maybe a good 10 years in. So I've only really been active the last 6 years in the neighborhood, but it just took me a while to really figure out what I wanted to do, because the moment I got here, I just saw all this need, and it's like, oh man, I could help here. I could help here. And there's just so many areas to look at and get involved in. I just really didn't have any idea, what the best first step was. So I just kind of sat back and watched. And then eventually I started to go to a couple neighborhood associations. And I actually went to the ones in other neighborhoods as well, surrounding, just to kind of get a feel for the whole area. And then, of course, being in Oak Park, then I decided to, or actually before I joined there, let me back up, because I wasn't part of a neighborhood association. And then, so here's what happened. So I had a neighbor, Kanoki Israel, great guy.
Okay, yeah.
He has the Israel family farm. He was my neighbor, one of the best neighbors you can ever have, because he's so down for anything. Anyway, he teaches me all kinds of stuff when I talk to him, but he ended up, he had a farm, or kind of a farm situation going, nothing like what he has today, but just kind of the starter kit. And then Ubuntu Green, run by Charles Mason, and I had some really good folks on that team, Katie Valenzuela, and then Rangane. Can't forget Rangane. Mm-hmm. Anyway, they ended up bringing some of us together to say, hey, it was just kind of like a community meeting. So we all got together. And then they said, hey, we have some free grants to be able to get some gardens going, that kind of thing. So start planting some, and I got one in my backyard. And then they said, okay, let's gather everybody together to kind of talk about their gardens. So then we started that conversation, and then they kept on interrupting us as we were talking about what we were growing. They were like, well, what do you like about the neighborhood? And we kind of answered the question. I like this, this, and that. And we get to talking about the garden again, and they'd say, what don't you like about the neighborhood? They kind of kept on pulling us out of the conversation. I'm like, what's going on?
Okay.
What they were doing, we didn't realize it until later, they were starting a neighborhood association. So they kind of got us to talk about, what kinds of things could be improved in the area, how we can get involved, all that. And as I started listening, it just started to make a lot of sense. And we have OPNA, which is a dynamic neighborhood association. Mm-hmm. At the time, they were really focused on the Broadway Triangle, because there was just so much going on there, and there was so much attention needed for all the development and everything going on. And I think most of the volunteers on that board lived in that immediate north area as well. So what was happening is the South really wasn't getting much love, and there was just a lot of, it was very different. It was maybe more boarded up homes, more loose dogs in the South, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Still had that in the North as well, but a little bit more in the South. So there was just a lot of business that wasn't really getting tended to. And as a group of volunteers, they couldn't do it all. It's just such a huge neighborhood and so dynamic. And so anyway, we ended up starting a South Oak Park Community Association. And we met early on with OPNA to say, hey, here's what we're doing. And most of them said, hey, you know what? We can't spread ourselves that thin to cover that area. So we're glad that you're doing this as well. So initially everybody thought, hey, these are two rival groups like the Crips and the Bloods or something, right? No, but it's like, no, it's all Oak Park. It's okay, right? We just have different focus areas, and there's different dynamics, as I said, that need that specific attention. And so anyway, what I did is I was on the South Oak Park group, but then also joined the board of OP&A. And that way there was this bridge. And then
Yeah.
2 more folks ended up doing that as well, Sharon Agigian and Katie Valenzuela. So then we had kind of 3 on both boards. So we ended up getting our synergy and trying to do some stuff together. So it was good. So that was kind of the start of everything. And then from there started kind of picking up different hats and joining different organizations. Black Child Legacy Campaign for Oak Park. I was part of the group that got that started, and then Urban League came over and kind of took over the administration part of it. But I was more of the community part to kind of get folks going and get some meetings going and get some synergy. And I'm still, as active as I can be on that level. And then also Jay Chenier has a nonprofit called Way Up. So I'm the executive director there, and it works with all the 12 schools in the area and helps them build capacity and do some really cool stuff for the community. So I'm kind of tied in pretty much Oak Park all the way. And then lastly, the Fruit Ridge Community Collaborative. There's about 23 nonprofits, and I'm pretty involved there, trying to just do what I can to help those, help that whole facility come together, pull together, get grants, and really just kind of build. So
That's so many things.
yeah.
That's a lot to keep on your plate. I'm overwhelmed.
Yeah, it's all connected, so it feels like it all kind of moves in the same motion, which helps, and all worthy stuff. So glad to give my time.
Yeah. Well, I saw you also teach financial literacy classes.
Yeah. So I have a nonprofit, Neighborhood Innovation, and so what I'm really trying to do is part of the Go Biz grant from the state. It's this marijuana money that's collected, and they say, hey, we want to give it back to the community that was affected by the war on drugs. So we take that, and now we find ways to build the community with those funds. And one thing is financial literacy, because I'm really teaching folks the basics when they come in. Just what are stocks? How do you buy them? When do you sell them? What are they about? Just really easy ways to kind of just get going on it. I don't want anything to be too intimidating. It's more of just an introduction, an eye-opening. But we talk about budgeting. We have classes on insurance, home ownership, just kind of all the way down the road. We mix it up every month. So this month, I think we have some credit repair this month in February. So it's some really good classes, and they're all free. Folks can just come in and learn, and try to have them walk out with some resources. And we just ask that they go and spread the word, because there's so many people that are struggling financially and just don't know what to do, don't know those first baby steps to take. And so if we can equip, one person at a time, they share it with their circles, and eventually we get the word out.
Oh, that's amazing. And it's hard to find good information, especially when you don't know how to look.
Right.
And,
right.
It's hard to tell when somebody's trying to sell you something, especially if you're not very savvy.
Right.
So
and that's one thing I make sure is when they come in, they walk out with all their money in their pocket, because it's not about making money, because I'm already paid through the grant, but it's really just a way to just help bring some benefit for free.
That's a fantastic service.
Good stuff.
How long have you been doing that?
Formally, let's say about 6 months.
Okay.
We just start having our class series come out in January was the first month. So this is the first time we're doing it kind of in this manner. So we're trying to have about a good 4 classes a month. And so January we pulled that off, and then February scheduled for the same. So going to kind of probably by June sometime, we're going to eventually start holding them in different parts of the city. But for right now, it's pretty much all at the Fruit Ridge Community Collaborative.
Okay, that was my next question.
Yeah.
So all the classes are at the Community Collaborative?
Yep. 6 o'clock, and usually on Tuesdays or Wednesday evenings. And so we're probably going to start trying to actually get into the schools and do some daytime classes for students as well. So most of at the Collaborative for the most part now.
All right, that's wonderful. That's so helpful.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So, in your opinion, what things do you see going on in the neighborhood that you think are exciting and beneficial?
Yeah, this neighborhood, it's the most diverse neighborhood in the city. And because of that, I think there's just so much synergy. And actually, it's in 2 parts. So I'll say this. It's a lot of folks work in silos because they just don't know each other, right? And they're different cultures, and there's a lot to learn about the next culture, right? So I think that there's a lot of silos, but then you do see a lot of unity as well. So it's an interesting blend because you have what's coming in is, you hear the G word, the gentrification word,
Yeah.
right? And so you see new folks coming in that don't understand some of the folks that are currently here, but when they do come together and connect, then they can learn so much from one another. So I think it's just a slow process because, the person who's new to the neighborhood, they don't understand that when you go to McClatchy Park, which the locals call the big park, and, they're shooting dice, they think, oh my goodness, they're over there gambling. That's illegal. But for generations, they've been doing that. They don't understand why the music has to be so loud. It's because of the bass, and that's the culture, and that's what they listen to, right? But once, the unity starts to form, there's different organizations that come together to connect people, like the neighborhood associations, the business associations, all these associations that come together and really connect folks, then I think we're going to start to see, major turnarounds. Even the church is an excellent example of that. And we're going to start to see the neighborhood, really improve and connect.
That's interesting. I'm thinking, I definitely see the silos. I've been here 11 years.
Okay.
And especially, my close neighbors, we generally have good relationships, but I see the silos among, I live on 3rd Avenue, and there are definitely little pockets of immigrant communities, and then people who've been here since the 70s, and then,
Yeah.
The newcomers.
Right.
I think, I don't know, that's one of my things is how do we all get to mix together and get to know each other?
It's interesting because I guess I grew up in Anchorage, Alaska, and so in that city there were 2 military bases, an Air Force and Army base, and so there was just a big mix of people from everywhere, all across the nation, coming through at all times. So I went to school with people just from everywhere. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of used to mixing in with just different types of people, but most people aren't. So I think in this neighborhood we have that opportunity.
Yes.
And I think, there's some really good examples out there, but it's a learning, it's like, for instance, I know the council member, right? So great guy, Jay Chenier, prestigious, gets the job done. But then I also know gangbangers. So it's kind of this mix that a lot of folks they stay in the middle and don't really cross the lines. But I'm able to do that, and it's just something, I guess I was brought up that way. And I think the more we're able to do that, the more we can learn from everybody. Some things the gangbangers do, I don't do, of course, right? And then some things in the high political realms, I just, it's just some stuff I'm not interested in. So it's really about just kind of finding where you are, but still being able to relate to the person next to you. And I think it's something that you have to work at sometimes. And but I think, being in such a diverse neighborhood, we really have that opportunity to take and get a hold of it here. One thing is an event that the Oak Park Business Association started was Gather. And so you have so many people coming together from just everywhere. And what I love about it is it's just a big mixing music, mixing people, mixing vendors, and it's just always kind of different. And that's an opportunity for folks to just kind of come out and celebrate each other. And we don't really get those opportunities a lot of places. But I think, the more we can do that, the better it'll be for everybody in the whole neighborhood. One last thing is we have annually Way Up to celebrate Oak Park. And that is an event that happens at McClatchy Park, and we bring all the schools together and just kind of celebrate the youth and the kids and the families and everything. And that's just such a really good example of this blend, because you have people from different schools, different ages, and families coming together at the same time. And Oak Park's good for having those kind of mix and large collection of people coming together in celebrations. We used to have the Oak Park Jazz Festival, and that went on for years. It was so strong. Unfortunately, I think funding just caused that to run its course, but it was a good way when, you have jazz, so you have some everybody coming there. And so I think that Oak Park has traditionally had that, and I think we can continue to do that.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see more of that.
So what do you think, outside of, my family really enjoys the Gather. My kids consider it, an essential thing that has to happen.
Cool.
But what do you think are the opportunities or ways that, outside of something on that scale that we could do to start, mixing it up with each other and getting to know people outside of our silos?
I think one of the best ways is through the neighborhood associations, just kind of coming to the meetings, just kind of seeing who's there, understanding the kind of neighborhood politics, connecting on that level. And then usually from there are opportunities for different committees that you can get on. You get to hear from the different council members and kind of the city news. So it's a really good place to collect kind of all-inclusive data and find out what's going on and kind of stay in the loop. Outside of that, there's organizations like City of Refuge that has awesome events that they do, and they do a very good job of bringing people together. And then even going, as simple as just going to the Oak Park Little League games and just kind of participating and getting to know the families, going to McClatchy Park in general and just kind of hanging out, spending time there and getting to know folks. Because you'd be surprised how many people are there just to have a good time. So it's not like you can't come over here, this is our territory. It's more of, hey, we're here to have a good time. You want to have a good time? Come on, join in. Let's do it. So I think it's just kind of making sure that you break down those walls as much as you can and not be afraid to talk to the next person and trying to get out of the silos, because I think we get too comfortable in there. And even even on streets, you'll see people don't talk to their neighbors much because it's kind of like, okay, you don't get in my business, I won't get in your business, and we'll just kind of do our own thing. But once you start having the neighborhood block parties and things like that, you get to know that, hey, these are real people, and they have so much in common and real needs and everything. And so I think it's and like National Night Out is probably a great example of that, because nationwide folks get together and have block parties. And we do a really good job of that in South Oak Park and all around Oak Park in general. But Phil Cerna once a year has at Jack Davis Park, tons of folks come out, everything from neighborhood groups to resources to some everything, and music and entertainment. And I just think on that level, music and food bring people together. And so when you have the right mix there, it could go right every time. So, and I think Oak Park does a pretty good job of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what do you think the challenges what are the main challenges the neighborhood's facing?
Here in Oak Park, I'd say the gentrification and housing is the major thing. That's what everybody talks about. Education is pretty high on that list too. But I think that housing shortage right now, that's kind of all over the city, all over the state, everywhere. But I think that specifically here in this city, it's folks coming in and not understanding the people that are currently in the neighborhood. That's always tough, because if you and your family have lived here 30 years, you feel like you're a part of the neighborhood, you're ingrained, you have ownership.
Yeah.
But you might not actually own that house, right? So it's possible that you might have to move, or when your kids go off to college, they try to come back, they can't afford to live here anymore. So it really starts to break it up and make things look different. It's unfortunate, but I think if we can get past the housing crisis, which I don't know who has the answer to that, it's just kind of all over the place. But if we can get past that, then that'll kind of slow down the gentrification piece, because then folks will have options of where they can live. What I try to make folks understand is people get upset, hey, whoever they are coming into our neighborhood and pushing us out. Well, the thing is, they can't afford to live anywhere either. They're just kind of going where they can afford rents and where they can, provide for their families. So I think once we get past that, that's going to take a whole lot of pressure off of everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know Sacramento's working on some solutions, and I know City Hall's, busy. Every time I'm there, I'm hearing about housing and some of the solutions they're trying to put in place. So I think they're working hard, and hope there's some really good things coming soon.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's definitely the thing that I've been hearing the most in the neighborhood.
Yeah, definitely.
Affordability, especially for the older people.
Yeah, and even in this neighborhood, I mean, at one time, Oak Park was very affordable, but not so much anymore.
I couldn't afford to move in today, so.
Yeah. So I'm glad I got in when I could, but so it's tough for everybody.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed our conversation and really
you.
appreciate you coming.
All right, had a great time. Appreciate it.
Me too.
All right, thanks.